Boards games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. We are starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And today, the introduction is going to tell you about the main topic, which is production. We're going to talk about producing games. And there are many to Bez and Lewis's name. But Lewis has made some games with Brain Crack Games. That's the name of the company. I don't know what they're like in the sack or the same. Sorry, I'm struggling to rhyme with Brain Crack Games. Train track. Now we're going off a train track. Anyway, boards, games, and production is what we're talking about. Boards, games, and production. I'm not going to shout. Hey!
Hello.
Good morning, everybody, and I am Bez. We are blethering about board games, and it is bedtime in New Zealand. And so, coming up today, it is product design with Lewis Shaw, and I want to, hello, Xate, and I don't know what I just sang. People can, it's just. If you want,
said that I'm not very good in the sack. Apparently, that was what I heard.
That's not the way I meant it.
Okay, that might have just been my hurt ego, my fragile male ego talking. Thank you, Zay.
I don't know. I was just trying to put together some words, and maybe I should stop improvising the starts, or maybe it's like all a Freudian thing.
I think you just one morning without any kind of pre-announcement, you just have like a full orchestral version. You have someone compose the intro and outro, and that just all of a sudden becomes as if you've been bought out by a media magnate, and suddenly all the production value is just you have a stage.
I feel like if I were to do something like that, it should be for like a special thing. I mean, not the 200th episode, because that's like going to be next Tuesday, but maybe, I don't know, the 1000th episode after I've been doing this a while longer.
I mean, how quickly can we get someone to compose something is really the question there. It's not a case of if, but when.
But it's also the performance. I mean, you've got to think about all the... Yeah, I mean, you've got to think about the violinists, all the players putting it in together, production. Is it going to be like live played in the background, or is it... Oh, speaking of Alex...
Good morning, Alex.
Morning, Alex.
We're going to conscript you to write a theme song.
Apparently. So, anyway, we are going to talk about product design with Lewis Shaw in a bit. I wanted to start talking about box sizes with... Emily, because apparently we both care a lot about box sizes, but then Lewis said, hey, how about, let's expand it a little bit and talk about not only that, but like materials and costing and all that sort of thing. We'll get into it in a wee bit, but first of all...
It ain't just the size, it's what you put in it. It ain't just the size, it's what you put in it. That's my song about boxes.
That's product design. Okay. So, yeah, size isn't the most important thing, Bez. Jeez, change the subject already, says Xate. Let's talk about brilliant things. Brilliant things. What's the little thing which is brilliant?
Brilliant.
Okay.
Am I going first?
Oh, there's only one brilliant thing. You never watch this show when you're not on, Lewis.
No, I watched it yesterday.
Did you?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
I remember now.
Maybe it's just wishful thinking that one day you'll have a brilliant thing as well. But then it must be exhausting to just come up with one every morning. So what are you going to do?
I mean, I was coming up with all the brilliant things for a while, and I'd kind of gaze around my thing and say, okay, what's a brilliant thing that I've not talked about yet? And then, I started repeating myself.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, I never talked about... like, there's lots of shapes that I didn't talk about, lots of numbers. But, Yeah. Anyway, so brilliant things are milk.
Making milk, yes.
Making milk.
Or just I like just the phrase, make your own milk. Why not?
Mm.
This counts for multiple things. There is the act of, producing breast milk. And I read a very interesting thing in the news this morning about a lady who, if I was a professional, I would have made a note and got her name, but I forgot. Who was breastfeeding and having trouble. So now, and she's like a chemical scientist person, and now she makes like breast milk, like actual breast milk just from cells and stuff. And Bill Gates just bought the patent, which is cool. That could
Wow.
help a lot of women and help avoid a lot of pain if you're someone who struggles to breastfeed, or wants that for your baby but can't do it for whatever reason. And also just the act of making fake milk. I'm mostly vegan. I'm a complacent vegan, and I made soy milk for the first time this week, and it's so easy. I don't know why I'm never going to buy. Okay, I may buy soy milk from the shop again, but it's very easy to make at home. Is my point. So I
And
love make your own milk.
so yeah, I mean it's an amazing thing. I think it's just brilliant because like all those nutrients from one person's body being kind of made and going to their children. I mean, and but like yeah, like all the nutrients in it, it's pretty amazing milk.
Yeah, it's one of the things where it's a really cool thing, but to go along with that, there's so much like difficulty. Like it can be like very painful for a lot of women, and like you have all these like people telling you at a very stressful time in your life, like you must breastfeed, and then if you have any trouble whatsoever, it just gets like amplified by everyone like shouting at you. So yeah, she's a lady. She's a lady scientist. She had a baby, and then she was like, "This is stupid. I got to use science to boost women's autonomy."
Oh,
That
that's
was going to be
amazing.
my brilliant thing, and then I thought, oh, that's a bit too wordy, and I don't really know that much about it. So
No, I mean it's just about appreciating things. I mean, or and hello Emma in chat. It's lovely to see you and to have you part of it. So I mean, I feel like I should have done some more rhyming today, but let's move on to daily highlights, living life and seeing the sights, daily highlights, playing games and other delights, daily highlights. I played a few games yesterday. I played My Little Scythe, and I played Ramen Fury, and I played an LDEC game that I'm not going to talk about because it feels kind of wrong to talk about like the contest winners right now. And I'm trying to work out exactly how I'm going to work it. But I'm in discussions with people. But anyway, so My Little Scythe, it's enjoyable. It's fine. It's nice. That's my basically review of.
it's life with ponies. What's not to love?
It's like let's talk about Ramen Fury because I've not talked about that before. That's
I really like
a lot.
Ramen Fury as well. I've played that.
It's a lot of chaos, and for sure there's a fair bit of take that. You know it's coming because people can throw things into your ramen bowl because you can have maximum of 5 things in your ramen bowl, and then it's okay. You know, block them with even this card that gives you 1 point, but maybe it doesn't give you as many points as you would actually like because if you're trying to
and
get
the whole
sets,
chilies
then
thing was nice. They're like chilies that like score. I can't remember if there's a sauce packet, and if it's chilies like minus points unless you have the chili sauce packet. I can't remember. But
so,
I really like
this
I really
isn't
like
my
ramen
game,
anyway.
But like each bowl has to have 1 flavor packet, which determines how you score, and then you get the ingredients, which are the things that help you score. You could almost compare it to a point salad in a way, and then you can have a maximum of 5 things in each ramen bowl. And
it
obviously,
ties
talking
nicely
about product
into
design.
today's product design topic. It comes in a little ramen packet, but not really. Like it's a kind of like a little Ziploc thing, and then a little box inside that looks like a ramen block. What's not to love? And that's where the cards are.
I mean, it's pretty well done. I noticed
Yeah.
you've got the instructions outside of the box.
Yeah, because I like to live dangerously.
Don't
know why
that's
that
fair.
is.
I mean, really, if you put instructions inside the tuck box, that's when you really live dangerously because you could fold it. But
or it's like, oh, how do I play this game? Oh, what do I do with this box? I can't read the rules, so I don't know what I do with the little noodle-colored box inside.
Yeah, and
Zay thinks this is awkward. I'm just like this all the time.
It says, yeah, the My Little Scythe doesn't have My Little Ponies. That was just a prototype, which is true. Like, I played Walter and Biddy, I think in the games are called Tigers or something. They're based on Jamie Stegmeyer's cats. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, there's definitely... I've not managed to make a delivery to the castle yet. That seems quite difficult to do, just based on a couple of games. And I'll see how I get on. I'll probably maybe try the solo version and then give a full kind of opinion of some sort tomorrow. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. But what have been your highlights? And what have been your highlights? Everyone in chat, let us know. So start off, Lewis.
My highlight that I've been playing is something that came out a few years ago. It's called petrichor, which is the fancy word for the smell of earth after it has rained, after a long dry spell. This is like
by David Sherkop.
David Sherkop,
and Turksy.
from Turksy. And I did not pick this for this reason, but as I said, it occurred to me that this is a great example of product design because it's got little clouds in it, and you put little things in the clouds. I'm not going to get everything out, but you like move them around, and then you move little raindrops out onto the thing. It's very tactile and lovely for what is a kind of not point salad is unfair, but it's an area control with lots of different ways of scoring, and yeah, we really liked it. And it was the first game we played on our new table, which made it an extra special occasion.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I've not played the finished version. I think that the version I played, the rules didn't change between that and the published version, but I'm not sure. So, and Xate has the highlights that so far they don't have a fever. Awesome. And these are the kind of things that we take for granted, isn't it? I mean, look, this is a kind of brilliant thing that we should be talking about. Like not having a fever. That's brilliant.
Just having a general feeling of good health.
Like lack of pain, body parts that work, that being able to twist and turn and
lift things and be flexible, because God knows I had like a bad back the other week, and it just took me out for the week. Just did nothing. Awful.
Oh, you know what I should say as a non-gaming related highlight? I did cycle that way and then that way, which you don't know which way I'm pointing, but it's basically west and then a little bit south. So it was a nice ride. It's like up a really big hill and then down a fairly big hill. So, you know,
I moved to Southampton specifically so that I wouldn't have to deal with hills, because it's all just flat.
I mean, I felt good about it. I felt a sense of achievement. And then, yeah, I spoke to my sibling over the phone, who's, just having this hour-and-a-half conversation late at night here, which is really early for people in Australia. And so that was a highlight for me.
That's cool.
And yes, hello, Rob, and I hope that you have had some highlights. And we're just on the tail end. Unless anyone else has any more highlights, do you have anything non-gaming to share other than your brand new table?
Well, just making soy milk, you know. I love anything that gives me slightly more autonomy from the from having to buy stuff constantly, and less stuff in the bin. I'm all about zero waste. It's a big kind of hobby of mine, interest.
I appreciate that. I think it was actually you in a Big Cook thread who asked, hey, how would you feel if there wasn't any external shrink wrap on a game? that was sent to you via Kickstarter, and a lot of people were like, actually, yeah, that would be cool. Which
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
like
was
just having something that like shows that it's not been tampered with. I think that was the kind of need before it goes to retail.
I mean, for sure, if it goes, I guess that's also delves into product design, but environmental impacts, and it's just thinking about these things from this perspective of how can we minimize our footprints and how can we, try to bring joy without bringing too much hurt to the world. Oh, apparently Rob is making soup out of dashi and wakame.
I've had wakame referred to a lot, and I actually don't know what it is. I only just realized they use it in salads. Wakame salad.
Your Xates talks about plastic wrap on a game yesterday, where even the rule book was shrink wrapped in plastic.
It seems excessive, and I don't understand
Mm.
why they would do that. That stuff annoys me, but not so much as I don't I like that there are take some comfort, I suppose, in that it is easily compressible shrink wrap.
I think, yeah, it annoys me. I understand the logistical difficulties. But when you've got lots of bits, I mean, it feels wrong to have all those bits separated out in single-use plastic that you need to tear open. I mean, if it's a game that's already costing a fair chunk of money, I would have thought that they would be able to, put that into reusable plastic. Maybe, I don't know. It feels weird, but yeah, certainly the rule sheets, the rule book. I mean, that feels really weird. That feels like luxury being associated with this pristine, no one else has ever touched it. It's a myth because like someone could have
put it in the box. Yeah.
But yeah, and what does it do for humidity control? Like actually with boxes, if you leave them open, like it's actually better for it before you kind of pack it all up.
Is that the only thing I can think of is that it maybe had to sit on the factory floor for longer than they expected, so they wrapped them. But then I would think, why not just wrap the whole pallet or cartonize them or something? I don't know. I don't understand.
I would imagine that it's done to give a sense of like like a sense of, oh, look at this is amazing, everything's wrapped in plastic, it's all pristine for you.
I do know that like a lot of that does happen, at least in my experience, just kind of without the person ordering it actually making a decision. Like I've had some projects in the past where like they just included extra plastic for some reason because they thought there was an expectation, or they like lined the box with like an extra piece of cardboard, and I'm just like, why? Like a lot of boxes have like a white inlay, and factories will just do that by default because they think that people would be somewhat offended by seeing bare grey board on the inside of a box lid or something like that. That stuff doesn't. Yeah, I try and keep an eye out so I can say don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when Categorical goes to print, I'm going to be not shrink wrapping the cards inside, because it seems even if it's going to a shop, that the important thing is you shrink wrap the outer bit. I mean, if it's a really good fit, which it is, it's not going. Sure, there's like a couple of millimeters where it could rattle around, but
yeah, I mean, I think the only concern there is just, I mean, this is quickly becoming a very boring conversation, but just like, yeah, like cards going missing during assembly.
No, this is what it's all about today. This is what I wanted. Like, let's just get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so we've talked. Let's put a pin in it and let's get into it in a couple of minutes. But this is, the kind of, like the rule book is inside the box. Do you want to name and shame, or are you kind of not wanting to name the game? But that is kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Like when you've got.
Maybe we can ask the publisher.
So let's talk about questionably quick questions. And Xate never names game, apparently. At least not publicly. So maybe tell me privately, and I promise not to tell. So we want to hear, firstly, where exactly are you and what time is it?
I am in Southampton, in England, on Earth. It's 10:20 in the morning.
And what is your take on the duck meatball situation? Duck-sized meatball or meatball-sized duck?
As in which should exist, or
Well, which
which
would
would I
be
rather
better?
fight? Which would be better? Oh, probably a duck-sized meatball, because I think a meatball-sized duck would have a lot of associated health problems due to kind of the breeding that happened to get it there, like the way that like a lot of small dogs have respiratory problems. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm potentially overthinking that or grasping the wrong end of the straw.
No. I see what you're saying. Like you kind of want to know the history of how this thing came to be.
Yeah,
Whereas like
or at least would like even
duck-sized
just
meatball, you're like,
existing at that
okay, it's
size.
something that someone's crafted. I mean, it's a solid thing out of wood.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Maybe play it
even if it
for a
just
giant carcass on.
even if it just came into existence, I feel like an animal at that size would have some problems.
I mean, what's if there were a genie, like a nice genie, not an evil one, that said, okay, you can have a duck-sized meeple. I mean, sorry, a maple-sized duck, and I can create this little maple-sized duck, and it'll live a happy life for a few months.
Maybe then, yeah. If I knew that there was that it was going to lead a happy life, then that seems like it would make sense. Anyway, I think a lot of people would like to give life to something that's going to have nigh on guaranteed happiness. Now I'm starting to warm up to the idea. Now you could have a little enclosure for it. It could just have a little. You could just run around. You can make little YouTube videos.
Yeah. Oh, Xate says if you had two of them, you'd need both sexes of maple-sized duck, and then they go get in love, and then they have little tinier than maple-sized ducklings.
And now I'm off. Now I'm off it again. See, because if you know anything about how ducks reproduce, that's just horrible. That's just going to be horrible.
Oh,
yeah. Can't have a female duck and keep it happy and introduce a male duck into the equation. Nope, not going to happen.
Okay, so do you know a lot about the reproduction of animals?
Some animals, yeah. I'm not gonna ruin anyone's morning. If they want to know how ducks reproduce, I think it may just be mallards. I can't remember, but they can Google that on their own time. I'm not
Okay,
gonna traumatize everyone.
How did you come to be wearing this shirt? Let's change the topic.
I bought it from River Island when I was in college, nigh on a decade ago. Zate's right. It's a theme, and it's not something I'm intentionally reinforcing.
I mean, we are going to talk about mass production, which is a kind of reproduction of inanimate objects.
Yeah, they're not reproducing as such.
Well, if you have like a first production copy, like as a prototype before you get your things, then you produce thousands.
I suppose, yeah.
And if you do another prints run and then you don't make any changes, that's as reproducing the game.
Yeah.
So,
what's your point?
Speaking of reproducing, I guess I have to tie it into a question. What was the last game that you reproduced?
Ragusa.
Okay, so that was a
second print run. There's a lot going on in this chat.
Okay, sure. Let's finish up with this final awkward question. If Yogi and Downsize were to have a baby, what would that game be like?
It would be a dexterity game about firing your new age like yoga instructors, or
So,
running a studio of yogis.
oh, welcome back, Rob. You've
You
missed a
missed a
lot of
lot.
really awkward chats about sex and reproduction and ducks and
Yeah,
um.
Rob knows how ducks reproduce. I'm pretty sure.
But
I feel like I
look,
know Rob well enough
so
that he knows that.
downsize and yogi. If you were to smash them together, what kinds of game would it be? Like, would it be a cards game of tactical decisions, or would it be a game of contorting, and then you have to drop a certain number of cards from your body? Maybe. So maybe
Both.
that's
Yeah, I think
analogous to
it
firing.
you could call it like Bikram hot firing or something. Like it would
Hmm.
be a very like a take that yogi. Have
Ooh.
you can like draw cards, put them on your body, but then you also have to get other people to like get cards off of other people's bodies, and then when the deck's empty, you just count how many you've got. I mean, it's like a contact sport.
Ooh, maybe you have to try to keep the cards on your own body, and you're kind of putting the cards on your back. No two cards can touch. Okay, so you can't just put them all under your
Make
armpit because
yourself
that's
into a
really
card
cheating.
tower.
And so you're putting them around your body. No two cards can touch. You can't tuck them under clothes. It's got to be on top of stuff. The entire card needs to be potentially visible. And then other people are coming in, and then they have like a certain amount of time to run in whilst balancing all their own cards and
Yeah,
trying to grab them off your body.
it's on a timer.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. You end up with a kind of arms race kind of situation. Not no pun intended, where you see, as soon as one person starts being mean, then everyone else piles in. Or you can have a perfectly peaceful game where everyone's just nice to each other. It's just a no contact game of Bikram hot firing or whatever it's called.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're trying to have the most cards on your body at the end.
Yeah. Arms race. There we go. It's a good name for the game.
Yeah, arms race. Oh, maybe you need to balance all the things just on your arms. That would actually be quite cool, and that would make it a little bit more accessible.
You're
So
like
rather than being like a
stacking
full
newts.
body thing, you're just kind of maybe you've got like one arm to balance them on, and then the other arm you kind of try to steal them off other people. I don't know.
Accessible as long as you have kind of both your arms, both not
Yeah,
fully
yeah.
formed. Otherwise
I
it's a
mean,
bit
it's
unbalanced.
more accessible than a full contact running around a large space sorts
This
of
is
game that
true.
we were imagining
Yeah.
1 minute ago.
Yeah. We're getting there.
So
We'll
arms
continue
race,
development on arms race later.
put cards here, put cards there. You're kind of trying to take cards. This seems like,
You
yeah.
did like a crab.
I don't think you even need any specific cards. Just grab the cards from any game,
Yeah.
and you could start playing it straight
It's
away.
a
Play arms
wibble
race
game.
today.
This can be a wibble game. It doesn't matter what letters are on. Just ignore whatever's on the cards. Just do it.
Just ignore the entire human card.
Just
It's
use
just
this
that it's an object.
as an object, as a set of pieces of card.
Oh,
That's the new wave of L deck design.
oh man. Okay, so this is the new game, and if you want to play that game, then play it. Tell us how you got on. So on your turn, you draw a card, you try to put it on your arms, and then you've got like to hit a timer. Maybe it's like maybe it's like a two-person game, and you're flipping the timer, and if it ever gets to the bottom of the timer, like you've taken too long on your turn, and
Ooh.
on your turn, you have to add a card before flipping the timer again, but also during your turn you get as much time as you want to take the thing from the other person. But if it actually runs out, then you instantly lose.
Or it's just the timer for the whole game, and people can go in and it's like, oh no, it's like
I mean, I was thinking that you flip the timer, so like if you've used 15 seconds, then the other person gets 15 seconds
oh
plus
maybe
whatever
you
was
give
already
people like
there.
a 30-second timer, right? And then anyone can go back and turn it back over and keep the game moving through. But it's like, how do you distribute that work? Do you like take it in turns, or do you just or is it just one person keeps going back? But because then every time you move down there onto the table, you might lose cards.
Oh, so now Arms Race is a cooperative game. you need to kind of be flipping this 30-second timer at least every 30 seconds.
Maybe.
Well, every 29 seconds, otherwise it goes to 0. Yeah, that could be a game. Anyway, let's talk quickly about what is a typical day like for you. If you've got quick minutes in as much detail or as little as you would like to chat about.
I wake up in the morning. I make coffee for me and Emily. I do washing up, try and clean the kitchen a bit. And then I work until about 5 o'clock. I do like on-off work with looking after the baby child that we live with, the housemate. And then play games. I wake up, I clean, I make games, and I play games. It's a game-heavy schedule.
I like it. And that is Lewis Shaw from Braincrack Games, everyone. Thank you. I would say you'll be here all night, but A, it's not nighttime unless you're, well, this is what I was trying to do, like with the whole busy bedtime board game bladder. Just be a little bit less Eurocentric. Do you know what I mean?
Like, you could call it like a busy board game breakfast brunch bedtime blather, and then it just covers whatever it is.
For episode 201, it's going to be a different name. I'm thinking either Boulder or, Better seems like a bit kind of assuming, but we can strive for continual improvement, just maybe a little bit better than the previous 100 episodes. But, maybe that could be something that I strive for, but do I want that responsibility? It could be bolder, it could be, I don't want it to be bigger or beefier, but maybe
when you first said Boulder, I thought you meant as in like the big thing that rolls up after Indiana Jones, and I was really confused. I was like, where is this going? But
no, I've not grown bitter. No, I definitely don't want it to be bitter.
Bez's beguiling bedtime board game blather.
Bez's beguiling board game blather. Oh. But if it was bolder, it could just be like, you know what? I'm going to be bolder and yeah.
Bewitching.
Anyway. So
I'll stop now.
We're going to the main topic. Well, feel free to comment, ask questions, fun like follow, and Bez and Friends Game Day will return January the 9th. So go to the Discord and check it out. And we are now talking about product design with Lewis Shaw. So let's chat about what are we chatting about? What is this? Can you give us a quick definition?
So, with infinite time and money and resources, I can make you, Bez, the perfect board game. But due to the market constraints, that is not the basis for a business. So we have to make games, any company needs to make products for lots of people, assuming what they would enjoy, make it so that it is able to be manufactured, so that it can get to the person, so that they can afford it, so that they will enjoy it when they use it. And all of those steps touched on by product design. And the word product kind of differentiates it from, the infinite time and resources, like, let's just make a fantastic thing. And it's let's make something that's accessible enough to be a product on the market.
So it's kind of taking this grand vision that you have and then making it, okay, how can we set it in reality? Actually, how can we make... I know Dave Salisbury talked a while back about that triangle of, cost versus time versus quality, and saying, look, it's not about what you want, it's about what you're willing to give up. And that's the mistake that lots of people make.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's be honest, if I want to make a really good thing for a cheap price, then it's just going to take a bit more time until I get round to it. And but also doing it, it's like, what concessions are you willing to make? Because everyone does have to make those concessions to make a thing fit into reality.
Yeah, and that's really interesting as well when you talk when it's in the context of like Kickstarter and crowdfunding, because we know we have to make concessions, but the whole by selling it by selling it in advance in that way, you almost want to give the impression that you're not making any concessions. And this is kind of like game of saying, oh no, we're making the perfect thing, and that's why we're on Kickstarter. When in reality, there's a lot of things that you don't do because it wouldn't people wouldn't buy it, or people were disappointed when they get it.
And yeah, it's kind of making those material choices, thinking about box size, thinking about also how is it going to sit on the shelf, thinking about how it's going to fit into people's lives. I mean,
and thinking about what the people really value as well, because
mm,
there's a lot of kind of like what people think they want and what they look out for, and things that are like heavily advertised aspects versus, you know, when it gets into your hands, onto your shelf, onto your game table, what actually makes the difference. And in my experience, it has been the things that we get thanked for are usually not the things that we would like put in an advertisement and say, look, buy this game because it's got, you know, an inlay score track or something, or like the components fit tightly in the box. But that's what people say. This, oh, I really liked that I opened the box and it was just all packed full of 100% like components.
no, there's definitely a lot to be said for that. I mean, as an example, I'm actually, yeah, I wish that I'd prepared.
I brought some of mine as examples.
I was just kind of thinking about Yogi, which I don't have in a bind beside me, but the big difference between Yogi and in a bind, right, is the product design. Because the rules of the game, and 1.5 of the cards were changed. So there was one card that said right hand, right of right elbow. That is something that takes a typical person maybe 3 seconds to be like, okay, right hand to the right of the right. Okay, I get it. And so you're allowed to do like that. For example, it's my intention that you'd really tuck in your right elbow, and that would be part. It's actually quite a nice card, but that comprehension issue was an issue. But like that's the game design, right?
Yeah.
And would you consider illustration parts of product design, like part of that color?
So I would include anything from like art, the design of the actual components, the way it's assembled, the way it's like packed and shipped, and you can extend it, maybe not really in our wheelhouse, but you can extend it to like all the 5 senses, the way it impacts the customer. You know, like would you put a scent in a box? Maybe if you made a game about coffee, would you include the scent of coffee beans so that when you open it, you were like transported? It's whatever you can do that will change people's experience. Yeah.
And Alex brings up the example of Mechs versus Minions, where thanks to
Riot Games.
Thank you, Riot's Games. Basically having a whole ton of money, thanks to League of Legends being a big thing. You know, they didn't have to make money off it, so it was just like, yeah, we're going to make this really amazing game for the price. And
yeah, I mean, because in their instance, and this is a case where like a lot of like or some video game adaptations to tabletop, is like it was just advertising. Because I've talked to video game publishers in the past, and they say, "Oh, the money that we would stand to make from a board game is really nothing compared to what we're making from just selling downloads." So we just want something that gets the name out. And so, like with Mechs and Minions, it was kind of a like, let's make a product that just has a physical impact. But even then, there were kind of not compromises, but things left out so that it would have more of a kind of table presence and an impact. It's a really interesting kind of case study.
Like, I mean, I felt like this is an example of the difference between someone who's making their first game, and it's not Cinnabine, but I've got Cinnabine Junior here, which is pretty much the same production value as Cinnabines. It's in a tuck box. The cards are black. The original cards were black and white, are made of paper, whereas actually, sorry about the language, but you know, it's in a tin. It's got some
embossing.
Yeah,
it was hinged as well.
Yeah, and then when you open it for some, yeah, it's got like all the cards. You know, you can like roll them up, and are really good quality. They're plastic. And I was speaking to the main person at Gigamic, and they told me that this was like a lot of people said, oh, this couldn't be done. Basically, it's a card tray that you put the cards into, and then so that you can scoop out the cards more easily. And it just keeps it more together on the table. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's something rubbish. That's doesn't add anything to the game. But actually it does. It genuinely, because of the way that the game is, in a bind, okay, all the cards would go scattering around the table once someone was trying to pick it up with their toes, for example. But in here, yeah, sure, someone might knock over the card holder, but there's also a good chance of, it kind of keeps it together and it serves a purpose.
It's thinking about like the customer experience beyond them buying the game, which is the thing. Like a lot of when with a lot of big publishers, you can kind of tell that they're geared towards like we sell it to them, we make it look nice on Instagram when they take pictures, but the people, oftentimes I get the impression it's like the people who are making those decisions budget wise or product design wise or whatever it is aren't the same people who are playing and designing the game, or playing the game like 50 times over and playtesting it, and that divide can really like make all the difference, really.
Let's talk about box size, because that's what started us all off. I mean, like if Yogi didn't have these 2 card holders, this box would be clearly too big for it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's anything. Oh, why have all my boxes of Yogi got additional stuff in it? I don't know why. But I think it's just a bit too much prototyping going on. But here's a box of Yogi with nothing else. And if it were like that, you'd be like, hey, why have I got this big tin when it can fit literally into half the box? I mean, as it says, at least you get this, but you can fit literally Yogi and Yogi Guru minus 2 of the card holders into one tin. And that's kind of disappointing, but at the same time, you can see that a company wouldn't want to get a game that's literally this size. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a kind of trade-off of like, how much do we increase the size so that it has more, not just like shelf presence in a shop, but also shelf presence at home? Because if something's so small that you just lose it on your shelf, then you're not going to see it or think about playing it as much. Versus, at which point is it too big and people see that this is a load of rubbish? Like when you have like if it was like this big, because they just wanted to have a big piece of art of like the main character, if it's like a licensed product, and then it's just a single deck inside, then that's when people get rightfully annoyed. And it's more expensive. Like that's the thing. Like it's to actually ship and move that around, and then because you've not got padding, the box can get damaged, and it seems silly to me. But that's what something people do.
Like, this is a thing for sure. And hello, J Guards, lovely to see you, and thank you, Xate, for inviting us all over for soup. Maybe it will happen one day.
I had lentil soup earlier this week.
But the point is that with box size, the bigger the box, the better it looks on the shelf, right? And for sure, like I had a shop tell me, I'm not going to buy in a bind from you because it's too small. If you ever put it in a big box, I will buy it. That is what the shop said to me. Because they said that for them, it will literally get lost. Like it'll go dwarfed behind other games, and on the shelves, maybe also people might nick it. But
yeah, and it's about like paying attention to how, I mean, it's called merchandising, the kind of way that like shops, and especially like a lot of big stores, will have a merchandising strategy that will be the same in all of their stores. So like John Lewis, for example, they will stock smaller games because they have these little like plastic columns that they can slot little like card games in, so they can have a lot of product in one space, and it just becomes a place where you can like stand and browse them. Whereas yeah, if it's like a hobby game store and they have like big kind of like Days of Wonder style boxes, And then you come along with the tuck box, they're going to be like, oh, where's that going to go? Like maybe on the counter, but then there's only so many things we can put on the counter, and it's kind of like knowing the like retailers as an audience and what they want. And you can go the extra mile as well. Like you can say like, all right, well, we're going to have a lot of places will say, oh, we've got a small product, so we'll sell the retailers a whole case, and we'll have the case be the presents. So like Magic the Gathering cards will come with like a nice display unit.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
for
remember
sure.
the
If you kind
technical
of
term.
have tiny games, and that's one of my kind of big dreams. Once there's like enough L decks to have like a display stand, and it's like okay, all these things. And Alex says, you know, positive play experiences sell games. If you play something with a friend and have lots of fun, you're much more likely to buy it. It's a long-term strategy. I mean, I would agree with that. Like, step one is making a game. Like, I don't want people to watch these shows about marketing, or it slightly worries me when people are like, oh, how can I make my Kickstarter work? Or how can I market this thing, but they don't pay enough attention to the actual design and development and the actual game that they are making. But for sure, the marketing and the seeing it on a shelf, and when it's on your shelf, having it kind of stand out. And I'm going to be honest, like there's times when I've looked around and be like, oh, where is my open copy of Kitty Cataclysm? Because it's quite a small box, and I know where it is. It's in my bag because I was playing it last night. But you know, the point is, if I've got a big box of, sorry, I'm going to switch these off, of let's say Corridor, because when you have, you know, you can make bigger box versions and then smaller box versions and then like little travel versions. So like when you open it, it kind of justifies it by the fact that hey, it's got the board is literally the size of the box. You could not make this the width and height. Potentially the depth could be a little bit smaller, but you know, it feels like you're getting what you pay for when you get this.
Yeah, it's like much smaller, and then it will just tip over if you have it on its side.
Yeah, that's true. Like there are the pieces in the little bag underneath. So the point is that like that is like step one, it's almost step zero. I want people to have a good game that is worth playing, that you can enjoy again and again and again. But at the same time, the fact that this is now in a tin that looks more attractive, that people can touch, and it's like, oh, I can feel, you know, like there's a bit of texture to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you've got the cards, and it's like, wow, if beer spills on it, you know, I had a Twitter photo that I saw with someone actually putting it on a washing line, and they said that like they spilt some fizzy juice all over the entire table, but luckily they were able to give it all a rinse and then hang it up, which was
I think it's a case of like who is publishing it has a bigger impact than anything as well. Because like if you're a smaller publisher, then yeah, you need to focus on having good play experiences so that you can make a name for yourself. Because trying to make something that's like optimized for retail, if you're going to be selling it mostly at conventions, isn't really going to make sense. So like for you, for example, having Yogi in a bind, in like small, well, no, not Yogi, sorry, like in a bind and like a Cutler, the L deck and things like that in smaller boxes makes sense because you need to travel, you need to take it to conventions to show people, so you can carry like a large amount of stock in a small amount of space. But and like having these like gigantic boxes only really starts to make sense when you're selling, you know, a substantial amount to retailers. Because if it's not going to go on shelves in a shop, then focus on getting your name out there and getting people to really appreciate it.
And yeah, Alan's mentioning, yeah, lockdown was potentially a giant experiment to answer the question of what percentage of games are sold based on their shelf presence. But
I think
too many other variables for me to take this. I know Alan is being facetious, but still,
I think a lot of people now it's the kind of, because of the amount of the plurality of board games, it's like how many, like how doing your research, I suppose, like knowing about the game to begin with.
Hear it through other means. And there's a lot of people in the hobby space for sure who will buy stuff online. But
Yeah.
I don't think you can overestimate, it's almost difficult to overestimate the amount of success that a game can have by just being everywhere. Maybe you want it to be tiny, and then you can sell it in a place that sells alcohol, odd bins and those kind of places.
Yeah.
Like maybe you've got a drinking game and you want it to be in a tiny wee box, so you can make a deal with odd bins that they sell it beside their thing, because why not?
It's
Maybe
all
we
about
can make
the kind of what the plan is for the game and the company and everything. Yeah, so many things.
yeah, and it's about suitability. But yeah, like we don't need, like, look, big boxes annoy me because of it feels wasted. It feels like it's almost deceptive. I think that's the biggest impact from a consumer. It kind of feels, okay, I'm going to get this much space. And also it's going to take this much space on my shelf. There should be enough stuff to justify this size. And in some instances, you open it up and it's like, wow, this could fit into a box a quarter of the size. At which point it feels, wow, this is unreasonable. It's like they were just making that box to have a bigger shelf presence. And
There's
at that
nothing
point,
there's nothing worse as well than having like a big box for a game that you don't particularly like very much. Not just for you, because then you have to keep looking at it and it's on your shelf, and I'm not pointing it specifically again. You you have to look at it and you're like, oh, I don't know, that's taking up so much
I
shelf
mean,
space
just
and I
for
don't
the
really want to play
record, the
that.
games behind you actually like.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I don't keep games I don't like. And then it's also bad for the publisher because then it appears on like buy and sell sites, because like when you go to like thin down your collection, you'll get the biggest games off the shelf first and be like, do I want to keep these? And if it's a massive box of a game that you don't particularly, even if you're just not mad about it, you sell it. And then people will think, oh, that game seems to get sold a lot, maybe I won't.
I mean, I think that, yeah, also when you're traveling, I mean, if you're relocating, you might be thinking, okay, it's not about wanting to keep 5 games, it's about wanting to keep
yeah, like a one box
like
size.
this much size of games, like maybe half a suitcase of games, or one suitcase, or one or 2 calyx cubes of games,
I used to
whatever.
put like I used to put about 5 games in a Rhino Hero box. And I don't know, maybe they might still be in there. I can't even see where the Rhino Hero box is. There you go. There's the problem with having a small box is Lewis can't find it on stream.
Yeah.
It's up there. Oh no, that's Super Bowl. But I used to pack I just take the stuff out of their boxes, put them all into the Rhino Hero box, and then just have options when I went to meet family or whatever.
Okay, Alex suggests 2 boxes, one for the shop and a smaller one inside. But yeah, again, we get into the other downside of big boxes. It's just wasteful. I mean,
I love that lateral thinking though. Please, everyone.
Alan asks, do we go to companies like Quadbins to see if they can and will sell games, and if they can, what box design would work or not? I have personally not done this. It's something that I never felt maybe confident enough to do with those kind of places, but it's something that I think that if I had something to, that was happy enough, like Wibble plus plus deluxe, I felt really happy with that. So if it was something of that quality that I felt, yeah, I can really, I think if I were to stay in the UK longer, then yeah, that's the kind of thing that maybe I would start doing. And for sure, when you go to someone like John Lewis, that is someone that I investigated. You do need to approach their buyers, and there's a whole system and everything.
Yeah, it's like you can do it without necessarily like letting them decide for you. You can kind of like going to kind of places and looking at their merchandising and seeing how people sell things, and then it's just a case of weighing up like what the customer wants versus what a retailer wants versus what an online retailer wants versus what you want for conventions. Because like God knows, like with some of our bigger games, like it's a barrier then to like how much stock can we actually take to like UKG and how much can we sell and stuff like that. It's a whole matrix. But yeah, definitely like considering what retailers want is really important.
And have you let I guess the question then becomes, who do you let influence this box size and designs? I mean, for sure, I have personally solicited input from shops. I've gone to shops. Actually, before I came out with Kitty Cataclysm and Wibble Plus Plus Deluxe, I was going round to maybe 10 different shops, and I had conversations with the owners about, okay, how did Inner Bind and Yogi and Wibble Plus Plus go for you? Like, what would you like to see? I'm thinking of having like a nice 2-piece box. It's going to be pretty much like quite a bit more expensive, but yeah, what would you like to see on it? And
I think it's funnily enough, when I have gone and done that and gone to shops and said, what would you, what's good for you, more often than not, the response has been more or less like, oh, someone else makes that decision, or like the distributor just sends us games or whatever. Like it's like there's this kind of feeling that like, oh, it's out of our hands,
I mean, that's why I find it, and to answer Jay Foolsguard, Oddbins is I believe it might be a UK store. It does sell alcohol and it doesn't sell games, but it sells alcohol. The point is that back in the days of, back when Yogi was in a bind, I got suggested by a couple of people that I speak to them, which as a marketing strategy, which made kind of sense because it is a game that drunk people could play for sure. And but yeah, going where the manager is also the owner, I think does really help. Where someone is more involved, where you can go to Settlers, Hamilton, or West End Games, and you speak to the one individual who's basically set up this thing, decides what to buy. I mean, if you go to John Lewis or Oddbins or whatever in the store, I wouldn't expect to speak to anyone of notes, if you know what I mean. Like anyone who...
I mean, it's interesting though. Sometimes, like I've had that reaction from independent stores, and they were still like, "Yeah, I don't really know." And but then I've also heard of like people going to chain stores where like the manager has like a local budget, and so the local manager can make buying decisions if it's like I think like Waterstones has a local budget if it's of local relevance. So like I know Grabler managed to sell like Cornish Smuggler into Waterstones in Cornwall, and then it got taken on by the rest of Waterstones nationwide because it's sold well. So it's like kind of, it's a weird, it's not something I invest too much time doing. I just kind of try and think laterally, like what works for the most people.
Yeah, I guess visiting stores is probably, let's kind of draw a line under it. I do know that Molly Zeph is amazing at it from Flying Leap Games, that wherever to go, just kind of going into stores and checking out people. Brilliant, kind of. But yeah, talking about box sizes, we had another point, which was that Jay Foolsguard wishes that there were more standard box sizes. And that's I think there are quite a few standard box sizes, personally, because, yeah, when you go to a producer, a manufacturer to make the game, it's like they say, okay, these are the standard sizes that we don't need to do any extra tooling for. And if you want one of these, then boom. If you want a specific custom size, then you need to pay a bit extra.
In some factories.
Yeah.
It's very much like a kind of European thing where there's like a closer, I suppose, like a closer geographically and interpersonally relationship between like factories and like publishers where they can actually drive to, you know, Ludofact or NSL or wherever and just say like, you know, we want to make this many, and then they say, and because they don't want to like bend over backwards for them, because so they just say, oh, this is just these are the box sizes. This is what you could choose from. But then you end up with some really weird. That's in my experience where a lot of like weird box sizes occur because they want something that not just has shelf impact and works for the components, but also it's just like the factory had a template for that one. And I've opened up like a couple games recently that have come from like European manufacturers that are just like, this is so odd, like the choices that were made, because it was just, that was the choice, it was just standardized.
I mean, within one publisher, I think it makes a lot of sense to have lines, if you know what I mean. Like, I think that I've got Batik next door, and if you look at that, that's going to be the same size as this. And even though Salad de Pois is a different process to Yogi, you know,
so we had like small box shape, which is like, again, that was a standard shape that we kind of borrowed.
Show that again.
So this was like mined out and downsized, although I've got the Chinese version because I can't find the English version. And then
are they identical?
Is Chinese and English, or the box sizes? Yeah, they are. Although,
okay,
there was no game name on that side. Then that got complaints. And then we have like another game that's coming out in the same size as Didn't Breakfast, called Reasonable Doubt. And then we have our like large size of like Ragusa and Venice. And then Farsight that's just massive, but that's because we literally physically couldn't get it any smaller.
And then you've got the giant. So Farsight is just going to take a bit of effort and strength to lift up.
It's two boxes like this. But I'm not going to get both, and that was because like it's a massive box, and because we wanted the like plastic insert to have everything laid out nicely, and instead of like tiles, we wanted just like one massive board that folded out, so that it would stay in one place on the table. And it's a bit of a big one because the tiles are quite big, and I could have made it smaller, arguably, but I didn't because I wanted it to be a big game.
So a quick hello to Nicholas. It's lovely to see you. And hello. We've got a lot of questions from Alan that let's try and go through these quickly. So firstly, Alan asks, do game designers generally think about box size during the design process?
I did when I started off, but that was then because I was then publishing it. And I know game designers who do, and I know some that don't. Like, specifically like a Eurogamers thing, like a Eurogame designers thing would just send me games in bags, so they didn't even arrive on my table in a box. Like, I don't have one to hand, but like I know like Fabio just puts his in like Ziploc bags and sends them.
This is from Dave Mortimer, I think. Going to cover this bit because reasons, but this was a game that Dave Mortimer was heavily inspired by Yogi. And
Turksy usually uses old boxes, like old expansion boxes that he's just put like a label over and said, this is this now. Venice came in like a extinction evolution expansion box. So it's something that there are definitely designers who have thought a lot about what the end product should be like, but then usually I'm quick to say, like, hold your horses, slow down there. There's a lot of process left to go through before we make that decision.
I mean, I think you want to have a vague idea, and as a designer, it's useful to think, what exactly are you making? But there's always the chance to change things quite a bit. Like, if I'm thinking, okay, for my first game, certainly, I was thinking I want it to be a deck of cards and nothing else. And that's why, that was a constraint that I set for myself. And in the bind Now Yogi came out of that, and yeah, but like, and for sure, for future stuff, it's just more about the components than the box size as such. But you've got to have the vague idea. Okay, what kind of game are you making? Are you making this a £20 game? Are you making this a £50 game? Are
And
you
the
making
box size
this?
has like a huge the box has a huge like impact on that because like Mind Out, for example, that retails for like between 60 and 20 quid. But because of the relative small size of the box, a lot of people were like, oh, not really willing. Although it's packed full of, it's not just like a card game. Like there's like cards in there, and you got like lots of little wooden pieces and little like screen printed meeples and bits of dynamite and gems, and it just but it is all just like crammed in there. And like 2020 hindsight, I would have made the box like a little bit bigger, not just so it's easier to pack away, but also people look at it and they're like, yeah, I agree, that's a 20 quid game.
That phrase, 2020 hindsight, is going to, just start dredging up so many memories. But yeah, Nicholas thinks about stuff because of the price point. But as a reference, because yeah, sure, there's a lot of scope to make changes, and that's part of the process. Thinking, okay, you want to give yourself affordance. How big is the publisher? Is it just you doing it on your own that you can't really stomach doing more than just cards? Is it someone who could print 100,000 copies and can do like a nice mold and for plastic pieces and get them to a decent price point?
Yeah.
And Xates wants to hear about the Turksy game.
Yeah. It's called Venice. It's currently in production and it's coming out. It will like land in like January.
Yeah, there's the
amazing.
pre-order link at the end of here. So
this is my magnum opus of product design. If I could take a minute to just like go on a bit.
Sure.
Because we've got everything. We've got little itty bitty metal coins that are a first for me to make. That's really difficult to show them on stream. We're little coins. They're really fun. And the kind of like main feature of the game is these little gondolas. That are like, they serve an actual like functional purpose. So you could put little like cubes in the front there, and then everyone has little gondoliers that sit in the back because you have like 2 gondolas and you have to like activate your gondola. So I was like, yeah, put a little gondolier in there, and he pushes it along, and goes from place to place. And yeah, I just poured over this kind of game, being like, how do I get that theme in there? I make it feel more and more like a kind of play set. And there's one piece that I particularly like, but I cannot find it. Oh no, there it is. It's like you put on the canals to show that you've moved over something, and it's just a little wave, and it just goes on the spot, and it's just, I love it.
So I mean, there's a lot that goes into product design. It's like how it's, I mean, almost like the game development goes into that. The sculpting of any miniatures, the vector files. I mean, was it vector files for those meeple bits?
Yep. That like this is the reason I'm kind of so like proud of this is just because of the sheer amount of like moving parts within that. Like it was like a decision early on to be like, this not only has to like make visual sense, because I think when he initially pitched it, it was like these little boats and you just like slid tokens in there, and I was like, that's confusing, I can't see what I'm doing. And then also to like expand the board so that there was actually like spaces to put those gondolas on and to incorporate that into like the art brief right at the start of the project, so that we knew what size the gondolas needed to be, so that we knew what size the spot needed to be, so we knew what size the board needed to be, and then to keep that small enough that we could fit it in the right size box. So that's that tiny little thing of like, I want a miniature where I can put a cube in it and say that that's now carrying ceramics. Just it touched everything. and changed fundamentally how we developed that game. It took like a year. And it's worth it because it looks really cool.
I mean, for sure, as you say, it's all about finding what is appropriate for the game. Like, if it's a game that is going to spend maybe more time on the table, and it's like, what justifies a miniature? What justifies a sculpt? Nicholas is talking about Darkest the Night, a game that costed €26 in a very little box, and the price was driven by a small miniature that made it seem overproduced. I mean, overproduction, there was this big thread on Big Talk, which was really interesting, where it was, it basically comes down to a question of judgment. Is it too expensive for what it is? And
as Zaid asked earlier, is Venice coming out in English only? It's coming out in German as well. German, Italian, Polish, and French.
Yeah. And so, like, talking about this sense of overproduction, because Nicholas says, it's a €10 game that would have sold better. I mean, this is all arguable, and bigging up Oink Games, who make a point to have a really tightly packed box, even giving out instructions for packing it all back in properly.
That does frustrate me, though, with some of their games.
Yeah, if you've got to give someone instructions to pack it back in.
Yeah, like especially like all the like rules that like, and then you gotta like really think when you. It takes a good while to put like this is the Pyramid's deadline. It just it really takes some time to get it all back in to the point where I'm like, could you? It's where they've done it for so many games now that it kind of like they have to just keep doing it. And it's like if this was designed on its own, you'd maybe at least make it like a couple mil longer, and you could still put it on the shelf in the same slot. Other than that, though, I do really like Oink Games. That's not me trying to badmouth them at all. They're really cool.
No, I mean Oink Games they've made a lot of really lovely stuff, and Deep Sea Adventure probably
like
up there in games in general.
Yeah,
but like getting to the point of overproduction, and it's like what is overproduction? I mean, that might be its own kind of separate topic.
Yeah,
but
it's
like we get to like the environmental concerns, you know what I mean? Because we put a pin in that earlier. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the shrimp crapping. Let's talk about, putting little stickers rather than having it encased in plastic. Let's talk about, frankly, the amount of plastic in Venice. Like, how do you justify it? At what point do you justify it?
Well, I mean, so like for things like plastic, there's the kind of, what's the purpose? What kind of plastic are you using? Because there's lots of options within that, and where is it going? And what I've always kind of thought with board games is, it is going to a loving home where someone's going to use it and put it on a shelf. And I've never, I think maybe only once, put like a board game in the bin. And even then broken it down to like separate, like recyclables from non-recyclables. And then it's also, and then so the biggest, that leaves the kind of biggest question is like, how is the plastic being sourced? Whether it's like recycled chipped plastic, whether it is like hard or like HDP or I forget the like BBC and other ones that aren't like as recyclable. Whether it's virgin plastic and like the kind of, because essentially it's like made from oil that's been drilled from below the ocean. So at some level, it's always going to have an economic an impact. But how does that compare to a game that doesn't contain plastic, but you're still shipping it from China to, around the rest of the world? I think paper undoubtedly has a bigger impact. And things like wood, like
paper has a bigger impact on the world than plastic.
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, in the scale that it's used in, like board games, because they're for the most part majority paper.
Oh, sure, like, but if you replace the paper with plastic, which would have the bigger impact?
I couldn't tell you.
Mm.
I like that's the thing because it's for things like cards, it's not physically possible to make them from like recycled materials because you can't get the right fineness and strength of art paper. Whereas like boxes, I'm pretty sure all of our boxes are made from like recycled grey board, so it's stuff that's been pulped and reused,
Like
reconstituted.
photosynthesis, I think, is all recycled stuff, which is quite cool.
And it's things like with board games, I think it's possible to worry about it too much because, like I said, like these are things that are going on a shelf, and as long as it's rigid and it's going to hold its shape, you can take recycled materials and put it on someone's shelf to have as a treasured item, as opposed to like disposable products where you've got like a oven pizza that's going to come once and that comes in shrink wrap. That's going to cause an outsized amount of damage compared to like something that you're going to maybe buy like a couple times a year. It's a really complex issue.
I mean, for sure, environmental impact, it deserves a bit more focus. And I think that you say, it's possible to think about it too much. I would almost challenge that. And I would say, is it? Is it really? Because, this is the future. And I'm not saying that we have to, the ultimate thing would be to not play any board games and not make any new stuff, because not making the thing is always going to be better for the environment than making anything. But
yeah, I think what I mean is like as opposed to like the difference between thinking about shrink wrap as like now I'm thinking about how my environmental impact versus something where you don't think necessarily about your environmental impact, like what does my product range look like? Am I going to have one small core game and then like 10 expansions? That's going to have an outsized impact compared to whether or not there is a piece of recyclable cling film around your game. So I kind of want to encourage people to like think outside the box, and think like big picture. What is my company doing? Are we gonna pack stuff in a crappy box that's going to fall apart and end up in the bin because it no longer serves its purpose, or are we going to like this thing like there's overproduced and underproduced? Definitely, like selling something in like a reinforced steel case with like Kevlar would be overproduced because it's not going to need to be shot at with bullets. But yeah, like it's a case of evaluating what the actual needs of that product is, and the line gets blurry because everyone has a different definition of that. Versus of like, is it really overproduced? If I'm going to play this game like 50 times, then yeah, I want something that's like really nice quality. But if you buy a lot of games and you play them maybe like once or twice, it doesn't take much for something to seem overproduced.
Like when we get to it, it feels like all of this really ties in with design, development, marketing, publishing. It's all basically the same. It's all about thinking what is appropriate for your audience, like what is appropriate for the world. How can we make this fit in? And it's all that level of appropriateness. If you're not,
it's kind of like you need to like think like really big picture and like what are your goals as a publisher.
And yeah, I'm not going to lie. A small deck of cards with dozens of games included, and like I am proud of the L deck, and for sure, if there's like an appropriate box, which I think the best box in terms of long-term actually staying, physically in one piece and not falling apart, is a two-piece box. It's a lot nicer than a tuck box, let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
I've put tuck boxes into my bag and they've fallen apart because of things hitting it. And, if it's just on the shelf and then sure, nothing's going to happen to it. But in the real world, if you transport it, but yeah, then, oh, you guys. Yeah, it's like, I do like the fact that someone could buy that and still be using it in years to come with more games that continue to come out for it. And that is like the one thing that makes me feel proud. Obviously, there's limitations. And again, like what is a game system? That's like a completely separate thing. But yeah, like this all does tie into the environmental impacts, because if you've got plastic miniatures that are being used in Taj Mahal, and then plastic miniatures that are being used in Venice, and plastic discs that are being used in Battleship, sure, these might all be brilliant games, but we need to think like and justify it. I mean, to ourselves and to its place in the world. Like, are we actually, is the value that we're adding to people's lives worth the environmental impact? Because I think we do need to think about all this.
Yeah, I think that because that's the thing. It's like a market defined thing, you know, like in a kind of depersonalized sense. We're only making luxury board games because people will buy them. If people stop buying them, we would stop making them. And if we stop making them, someone else would make them because people are still buying them. So it's a case of like, again, like kind of going back to what is that you may as well engage with what's happening and almost like potentially try and change its course. Like we've looked at like making like miniature things out of like recycled plastics and stuff like that. And I wish it was simple. But I still think I'm kind of in the grand scheme of things doing something that's I don't think it's morally reprehensible because we're kind of sequestering.
Oh yeah, I'm not suggesting
Yeah,
that.
I know I'm being
I mean,
dramatic, but
look,
like,
I'm not having a go at you or like.
oh yeah, no, I know.
Like
I'm using
you or
hyperbole.
anyone. Like, I do want to ask these challenging questions, and it's like, yeah, like I know the word justify has like a lot of emotional baggage to it, and it does put you under the spotlight.
No,
But
I think it's a logical thing. Like it is, yeah, like kind of sequestering a like a limited resource for use by by like an audience that for like a lot of our games, they're people who really want to take care of them, as opposed to you know it ends up with a different kind of journey, like a lifetime, opposed to like a Happy Meal toy that gets made to promote a film that's just come out and then it gets chucked on the landfill because it very quickly loses relevance with kind of an audience with a shorter attention span. Yeah,
we've got a couple of really pertinent questions. Sorry,
yeah, I was kind of
yeah,
interested.
like firstly, Alex says, you know, board games are such a tiny industry compared to oil, agriculture, fashion. Is it more worth investing time in the environmental impacts of fairly long use items like board games, or focusing on larger industries that pollute more? And to me, like the answer is kind of obvious. Like but we are here talking about board games. And so even if board games are a lesser culprit, that's what I've kind of chosen to focus on. And lots of my life is going to be board games, and plan to continue working with board games in some fashion. And, you know,
Although I
maybe
think
I'll.
it's worth saying though that like it is always worth kind of looking at your like skills. I mean, like whoever you are, wherever you work, like it's worth looking at skills and being like, how can I like chip in those industries? I suppose like because so I run Braincat Games and a second company called Little Revolutions that's more like that seeks to kind of like address the like household impact of like common household items and finding alternatives and like zero waste and less waste items. Because I realized like, oh, if I can sell things online, I can use those use what I've learned for good. I mean, it's also for my financial betterment. I don't want to act like running a company I don't benefit from it, but yeah, it's thinking bigger picture. It really helps kind of empower you, I suppose.
I mean, Alan suggests most good games get recycled eventually. Is there a good game repair shop out there? And what? I mean, I don't know anything like that.
I mean, I would say it's just the publisher. Like we will send out components that are missing or broken, or not send out broken components, but send out things to replace broken components, so that someone's like, 60 quid copy of Ragusa doesn't become defunct and go straight to a landfill. I will send them just a bag of like crumbled, broken wooden pieces just to really rub it in.
Oh man, sorry, that was yeah.
Yeah, like
you heard it here. We send out components. Sorry.
Like at least once a week, I will just take a box and I will just like punch a hole through it. I'll take a craft knife and carve my name into it and send it out to a random customer as like a threat.
Okay, look, I know that I believe the Asmodee owned companies totally changed the situation where they said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore because the second-hand industry is kind of starting to demand too many components from us. We're not profiting off this.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can see it from a case of giving a short term, giving a short term rather than a long term guarantee, because I will support people who have bought. I'll support everyone who's bought, Ragusa now, regardless of where they bought it from, because it's only been out like 2 years. But if in 30 years someone seeks to file a lawsuit because they don't have replacement parts for a it's like, you said in the rule book that you'll send me new bits, and I'm like, but they don't physically exist. Like someone asked us to send them a set of pieces in a different color. They said, I don't like the colors. Send me them in different colors. And I'm like, what do you like? You could I sent them like a link to like acrylic paints. I was like, you can change your set, you can alter it personally, but I'm not going to do that for you. And if that's unreasonable, then I'm very sorry.
That is a very unreasonable request. But I also wanted to address the kind of postage cost and, and also the environmental impact of the postage. And, if a box is damaged, how that, takes almost as much effort and cost and environmental impact to ship as almost the entire game.
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
Also to protect it from inside, to make sure that box doesn't get crushed.
Yeah, that is usually where we will, like, if someone has like mild cosmetic, damage from shipping, then we're just like, okay, like it's not going to stop you playing the game. It's only going to maybe damage your like resale prospects, but that's not our concern. Our concern is to make sure you can play the game and enjoy it. And yeah, but so it's not just me then that gets the color change thing. I can understand it like pre-production, but this was once they actually had the game.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that for sure, if we reuse stuff, then it is better? And I know I was actually chatting to my friend McCall about this on Thursday night, I want to say, because we had, and I've been told not to use the word date because that has romantic implications, but
rendezvous.
Yeah, sure,
yeah.
a rendezvous. That just sounds almost more majestic. We had, c'était un rendezvous avec mes amis Nicole, and nous avons marché sur la place. And so anyway, as we were walking back home to around, like, we were chatting about clothes and what I will take with me, and like how McCall's like just not buying brand new clothes or anything, because the idea being that by not buying new clothes and by making sure that things are being sold, it's one less thing that's being produced. So like even like a potato masher, McCall bought that secondhand, even though like he probably could go to a pound shop and buy it for £1. McCall bought it for like £2 from eBay, from like just a random person who was selling this potato masher for whatever reason.
It's really nice. Like that's something that we've done a lot of this year, especially because we've got Rowan. He grows so quickly. I don't know that we've bought any like new clothes for him, like from a shop, for a long while. It was different when he was born because he was like too small to really reliably get clothes secondhand. But yeah, it's just great, and because then we're buying it from people who are in the same position as us, because in 2 months or whatever, we'll have a bunch of clothes that no longer fit him, and we'll need to sell them. So it's kind of that like secondhand economy.
Like I remember in Thailand when I was there 15 years ago, and then I was leaving, right? So I was like maybe 3 or 4 days before I was leaving, and I was like, you know what? I don't need these clothes really. You know, there were these kind of markets that were, you know, basically buying stuff, you know, and selling
like
stuff.
flea markets.
Yeah. And so I basically sold a whole bunch of t-shirts and stuff for like maybe 50 pence or whatever. And I'm not going to say like it was like maybe gave me enough money to buy a nice falafel sandwich or something like that. I think I did buy a nice falafel sandwich in Bangkok, which you might not. Why are you buying you know, it was something I thought, okay.
Classic classic Chinese cuisine.
But wait, did you say Chinese?
Oh no, it's Thailand.
Thailand. But anyway, the point
fell off
is
from
that
embarrassment.
yeah, selling stuff and then buying second-hand stuff and having those book swaps where in train stations it's leave a book, take a book. Those are lovely things. And maybe, you know, having all these games and be like, okay, let's get them to people who will actually play them, and let's share them, and let's repair them. Let's kind of put a bit of sellotape around the corner of the box.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's maybe the best thing that publishers can do to make their games more eco-friendly is to support secondhand selling.
I mean, how would you do that? Would you have like a custom bit of your website which says, hey, you can sell secondhand, like maybe it's a private, maybe it's an eBay, maybe Asmodee should make eBay, but only for Asmodee products. So Asmodee maybe takes a tiny percentage
it's just like if we've not done this, and it's the first time it's occurred to me, but if we're talking to like fans of our games on social media, and if I'm a fan of a game, what I might like is to find out where I can get the game at a good price. And it might be that that's from a retailer, and it might be that someone's just started an auction for it on eBay and it's available for like £0 right now. And I can help out someone who did buy our game, who now needs to sell it for whatever reason, whether it's because they didn't like it or because they just need cash. You know, that's no concern of mine. Why shouldn't I just support that? And it's also like the policy thing of like actually offering replacement components to people who've got secondhand games. Like I got an email this morning from someone in Brazil who has a copy of Ragusa that his friend gave him, and he's like, "Oh, I can't play it at the moment because it's missing like 3 cards." I said, "Okay, I'll send you new ones. It's fine."
Yeah, like but sometimes we need to be okay with not necessarily getting new things. Like, I mean, I saw that Alan in chat made, I think, discard touching a neck, or no, it was discard under an armpit, I think it was. With the one that's based on Shti. It's very, very loosely based on Shti. So it don't meet Shti and say, hey, this is meant to look, and I probably shouldn't have even said that publicly now, but you don't know who this person is. It's just vaguely based on this person that I know in my personal life. And a lot of these characters like, okay, I'm going to start based on this, because that was, otherwise as an artist, you do tend to just draw yourself lots of times. And this was something that I'd been warned about. It's like, unless you're actually trying to keep someone else's body and face in your mind, then you're just going to make everyone look like however you look, or however.
That explains a lot. It explains a lot about just. I think it's just growing up, I used to just draw a lot of like generic male, and then I realized that generic male in my mind is just me. But it's not the first time I realized that, I suppose. But
and Alan says that they could only do that because I supplied blank cards in the back, and I'm glad that you appreciated that. And the reason for those blank cards were basically to say, hey, draw your own or customize it, but to have someone actually do a really good drawing. And
presumably because you had cards left on the sheet.
Yeah, I mean, I did. It was like, okay, this is how many good cards I've got. okay, I could come up with some extra things, but let's actually just
Which reduced waste as well,
honestly,
because otherwise
I
you would
could have easily. I think I made a conscious decision, and with the original one, it was one blank card. With the junior version, it was two. Because with the junior card version, I felt okay, children are more likely to actually children are more likely to just draw things. And I remember like this one cafe, which sadly no longer exists in Edinburgh, a board game cafe, and then they had to close for various reasons. You know, people close all the time. It's the reality of things. But a wee child bought it while I was there, and I was like, "Oh, this is the person who made it." And I was like, "Hey, would you like to draw some things together, and we can talk through the things?" And then I kind of guided them through that process. Like I didn't do very much, but I was like, "Okay, well, what kind of thing would you like to see on a card? What kind of noise do you think is funny? What kind of animal might make that noise? Okay, maybe we draw that animal." And I think I wrote the letters for them, and they drew all the pictures and everything. And so it's kind of giving people a chance to express themselves was the real reason that I did that. But you know, to have someone use it for replacement parts, and actually, I'm looking Ticket to Ride London. I lost two of the white buses, but there's, I think this was actually possibly while I was doing that challenge with Xate, and I had all the white components, and I took out all the white components out of all my games. So it might be in another box. I will make sure that before I sell any of my games, I'm going to look through that because I want to find those two white buses. But anyway, I definitely had them about 3 months ago, but I don't have them. Anyway, so there's a little bag of extra components, one bus per color. And then you take out those little buses, and I ended up using, okay, one extra white one and one extra red one. So right at the end of the game, when I trigger the end of the game, it's not there very long, but there's going to be one from a random color. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming myself. I'm just saying that it happened while I was in the thing with you. Anyway, so yeah, the point is that there's like that extra, hey, here's some extra bits, which is really nice.
I mean, yeah, it's like a cost efficiency thing at some point, because like we got to the point where we were making enough of Ragusa that it made sense to put like, I think it's one extra house, one extra tower in each color in the box, because it was ended up being like cheaper on the whole than if we didn't do that, and then we had to send out replacement parts. And the only difference we really had to make was put in the rulebook, like give the player exactly 20 towers, because we know that there are 21 in the boxes, but not list the extra one in the components, because then people complain that it's missing, which kind of defeats the object.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, components list is another thing that I know that we could have a long chat about, because I think that some people were saying that for Martin Wallace's game, Tree Frog, it started off saying, okay, you've got this many, and people would complain that there's one fewer, even though they don't need that many for the game. And then they'd say, okay, we've got about 25. And then people would start complaining that they had extra pieces, and just because people are sometimes odd.
I mean, that's just bad quality control.
Like it feels like for sure production and environmental impacts and customer relationships and secondhand sales could be like topics, and it feels really nice having had a long chat about it. Let's answer the questions and try to touch on what we said we were going to touch on, but accept that there's a lot more to talk about. Would that be okay?
Yeah, lead the way.
Okay, so have you ever caught someone trying to obtain a full copy of the game by gradually asking for all the replacement parts?
I have had people not do it gradually, but do it all at once with some very sideways logic. Like where it seems like where it's either like, oh, this person's clearly trying to just get an extra copy of the game sent to them, because they know that in all likelihood I'm not going to call up the warehouse and say, hey, can someone open up a copy of X and find X component and send just that to this, or just that card? Like usually you'll just send like a sealed deck or whatever. But yeah, no, I have had people be like, there is excessive marking on the backs of these, and it essentially ends up a long email saying that, oh, now you need to send me a whole new copy of the game. And it is just a judgment call. It's like, is this actually a problem? Are you kind of being very, very pernickety, or are you trying to just get a free game?
And apparently at Quality Beasts, they do send just single cards, and they even have a database to see if people have gotten parts before.
I am not that organized. And no, we just have like we get like when we warehouse, we like have like set numbers of spare components of each type. So like it will be like a bag of towers, and because then they need to just fit it into their warehousing system and their pick and pack system. But we can't just say like, I mean, maybe we could, but I try and be out of people's way and just say, hey, can you just pop a deck of cards in an envelope and send it out to people? Well, in the cases where that's like a small part of the game.
I mean, it sounds like potentially there might be someone at Quality Beast who, maybe we can chat later, Xate, and you can get me in touch with someone who'd be up for chatting about this kind of stuff, because that would be interesting.
I mean, I do also have like a small amount of, for like some of our games, I have like components just in my house that I will send out like smaller quantities of if they're needed, because they're not in the system. But yeah, it's a rarity that people ask for replacement parts for like Mind Out or whatever.
Okay. Alan asked, is small box a fixed size? And short answer, no.
No. there are like not defined small box sizes, but there are ones that like have become accepted. Like this is the size of a lot of games. There's like the kind of like 63 by 88 tuck box size. There's those ones that like like a lot of like Hasbro card games where it's like 2 decks in a kind of really thin like kind of letterbox size thing. So there are like standard sizes, but the only standards that I actually know of are outside of a company, are like on BGG, where you have to put your game into the database and you can just pick from like standard sizes that your box game is. But then yeah, usually you're making some kind of compromise, unless it's a card game, of like empty space in the box.
Yeah, and Nicholas, we didn't flash this up earlier, but talks about potentially overpacking stuff, as happened with, and talking about product design. It's also about unique things, like the card holders in Yogi were specifically made for that game. I mean, sure, they're also used in Yogi Guru now, and I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything that I'm not allowed to say when I say, there is an Abine Junior, and so Yogi Junior would be a very obvious third game. And so, and I'm sure that those card holders will be, but I don't think they'll be used in any other game. And so having that little bit, it kind of becomes part of the game. It's like, okay, this is what this game is about. And having those bespoke things, like Dice Forge incorporating the box, Alan asks if that specifically is common. I know that
we kind of do something similar. It's not the actual box itself, but the inside Ragusa and Venice, and both like this and Florence will be the same. We have little boxes that you can then pull out, and they're in the player colors, and you can just give the person their components.
Ooh, nice.
And it functionally, what it does is it kind of reduces the amount of like crush space in the box, where like if you get an impact from any side, you're actually going to have like 2 or 3 layers of cardboard stopping things from becoming damaged rather than just one. And it has the added bonus that people receive it and they use them and they're like, oh, Braincrack are really nice. They think about players, and it's not exactly like completely selfless, but yeah, it's a logistical thing.
Like having those little things that you can take out, And I know that like you need to think also about how it's going to move about. I mean, all these storage solutions, I'm just going to write these topics down for.
People seem to really like the insides of our boxes. I'll show like doing breakfast as well. Where, like,
Can you tip down the camera a wee bit?
That probably makes sense. This one is it's horribly disorganized because I've been rifling through it so much. But it's just thick with tiles. Like it arrives, and I think that when it arrives, they're like assembled all like that. And yeah, you physically can't fit anything else in this box. And you can actually, I think you can play it just keeping everything in the box. You don't actually have to take everything out. You just start playing. You just get the doors out and the ghost, and you're good to go. And yeah, and that's the thing that people say they like the most. Yeah. I mean, the company is just us, and associates. So if you like us, then you like Brain Crack.
So yeah, I was about to talk about Empires of the North that has this little thing that you take out. Have you played this one?
No, but yeah, I saw you were playing it the other day.
Empires of the North is a double layer inlay tray, and the bottom one keeps the cards nicely laid out. The top one has, in theory, the little components, but if you want to use that to tip the components into, then they're going to rattle and they're going to, just go everywhere. So I do actually have those components in little baggies because otherwise they would end up going everywhere. So it's all about
case in point, I opened up Farsight and I realized because I had it on my box on my shelf at an angle.
Tip your camera again.
Yeah, well, I'll do it when I get this open. Then I'm just going to say, if people are upset by messy boxes, please look away now because I don't want to cause any upset. But I opened it up and it looked like this. So which does nothing to highlight the fact that we have a really nice organizer for all and the faction bits have stayed in there. So this is like each faction.
I mean, this is like anti-marketing. This is like admitting your faults and everything.
It's admitting that I put something on a shelf sideways, and I regret it. And now, just while I'm on stream, I'm just going to organize this because it is actually bothering me.
And yeah, Xate says, unfortunately, they've never had the chance to play a Brain Crack game. Well, you know what? Maybe we will change that one day.
Yeah, well, let me know if there are any of them that you fancy. Most of them have solo modes.
Rob says, I'll bring some when I come over for soup.
Yeah. Rob has a couple of ours.
And Alex says, that's why I store horizontal.
Yeah. I am slowly realizing the more I open, because I've got a lot of boxes that have just been on the shelf for a while.
Alan, I think, just said that they don't have any games. And so that's why literally all of their Brain Crack games are damaged beyond repair.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a hard situation to be in.
Yes, where also literally all of the Brain Crack games that Alan owns are made out of solid gold.
Yes. All of the games, all the Brain Crack games you've played have won Nobel Peace Prizes for their contributions to world safety or something. I don't know where I'm going with
that. So we've talked about box size. We talked a good amount of that. We talked a bit about components, like about the fact. Do we want to say anything more about components or costing before we wrap up?
I will say this. I am maybe unusual in thinking more about trying to almost make the point of choosing components for a game before I know how much they cost. And I obviously I have like an awareness of how much things cost, and I know roughly how much something will end up costing the customer based on components. But I try and really think like what is ideal for this game before I commit to saying, oh, it's going to have these bits in it, and really have like a solid vision, so that then when we end up going and getting production quotes, we're getting production quotes for something that we know will be really good, and we will know that we'll have like the right intentions, thinking about like what does the customer want, and it won't, and that it's almost like guaranteeing ourselves from not doing it just via price or like cost efficiency.
Yeah, you want to kind of first think about what is best before you start making those sacrifices for price.
Yeah, and making those sacrifices on like things that don't necessarily matter for the customer, or that they wouldn't know were made. That makes sense. So it can't be anything that's like core integral to the game.
We have one very quick question. Whoops, slipped up. Is the box size of our side the same as Scythe?
I think it is slightly shorter depth-wise, but bigger. I don't have Scythe for quick comparison, but I think it is a little bit bigger, like length and width-wise. And when you have the war chest as well, it is bigger than Gloomhaven, both boxes together.
Alex says their space adventure is getting bloated and it's giving them mild anxiety because it might have more than 100 cards. I mean, why 100? Surely, if you're even caring about the numbers of cards, you want to go for 104 or 110, because it's like 52, 55 cards in the sheet. Why 100?
Depends on the size.
Yeah,
we do like custom sizes for all our cards, so we don't really worry about sheets too much. It might be that like we just have to like fiddle it at the end of the process to take out a card or change it by a mill or whatever. But don't worry about card numbers. If you're designing a game, just make it fun.
Alex says they like small games and they cannot lie. Xate is disappointed in you for not having Scythe. And
I don't like that much. I'm not a huge Scythe fan. Maybe I'm making it worse, but I just want to be honest.
Yeah, you're just going to turn Xate against you now.
Okay, sorry.
But
I love Jamie though, he's lovely.
Let's try to recap some of the things, because we talked about making milk, we talked about ducklings, and designed a new game, Arms Race. You can go and play it, just kind of, I don't know how exactly it works, but it's not even a design, it's a vague idea. Go and try it. Maybe I'll try it, I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe
it sounds fun.
Maybe
I'll end up playing it with Chris McCall, putting things on our arms and trying to steal things off other people's arms. Sounds like fun. An
anonymous video uploaded to Twitter, just like people just scrambling with cards on their arms.
We talked about that basically what we're talking about is making those concessions and giving folk value, because it's all about what you prioritize and what you say, okay, I'm willing to take a hit on. Like maybe you make your game more expensive, maybe you make your game, you release fewer, like what are you sacrificing for your game if you want it to? And everything is all about, nothing can be perfectly accessible. There is no perfection.
It's like, it's expensive for who? Like, is making it, whether your game is expensive for like hobby gamers who wouldn't flinch about spending 50 quid on a game, or expensive for someone in a third world country who can't, who doesn't buy board games at all. Like, it's all about the audience.
We talked about the environmental impacts. We talked good about the box size. There was chat about soup, and
soup chat.
Probably we need to talk more about customer relationships, about giving people things, and secondhand sales and storage solutions, and keeping things in those little boxes like you had for Venice, was it, with those little boxes? And talking about admitting our faults, that was like a really cool thing that you did, and I respect that. And then costing itself, and there's all sorts of things to ponder, and I hope that this has been interesting. And yeah, if you want to find out more about me, stuffbez.com, stuffbez.bitcards.com, twitter.com/stuffbez, instagram.com/stuffbez for pictures of stuff, twitch.tv/stuffbez. I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. UK time, 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, youtube.com/c/stuffbybez for the old catalog, and stuffbybez.com/discord. Go there, and if you want to chat more about this stuff, bring up discussions based on anything that you've heard, ask more questions, or indeed share pictures of cats on the Discord. That is totally allowed. And now, if you want to check out Brain Crack, where do you like to be found?
We have a website, braincrackgames.com, and we have the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram with Braincrack Games on all of them. And you can go to bit.ly/preordervenice if you looked at that box full of lovely coins and bits and nice boxes, and you say, I want that. I want the new David Turksy game. Because the pre-orders are going to close very soon. I think within a week. So I need to announce.
Within a week? Wow. So next time that we speak publicly, they will be closed.
You'll have missed your chance.
You'll have to give me new links then.
Yeah, don't wait for another reminder.
I mean, wait, I'm going to remind people. Okay, no, that's the last one.
That's the last one, guys. Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else that you want to recap? And I want to say, obviously, thank you, everyone. You have all been wonderful. Special thanks to Lewis Shaw, it's been a lovely conversation. And would you like to add anything to the recap? Would you like to say anything about what you're up to? Would you like to say something you're looking forward to or hoping for, or just a boring fact about
a blank slate? Just say anything. Yeah, like don't eat meat. Just eat less. Eat less animal products. Don't worry about board games, guys. That's the single biggest thing you can do to reduce your impact on the environment. Is consume fewer animal products. That's science.
I understand that beef is a big contribution.
It's the single largest contribution to climate change. The meat industry.
So if we were to say, you know what, I really enjoy eating the flesh of dead animals, and this is just not something I'm willing to give up, but I were willing to, stop eating cows and move to pigs.
I mean, whatever you want. Like, they all have a big impact. I mean, you can get lab-grown meat. You can try some meat alternatives. You could just have it. One night of the week, just have a meat-free meal, and if that is all you're willing to do, then that's fine with me. I love you and I respect your decisions.
Thank you for that respect. I want to share that. Yeah, I've been struggling with a bit of toothache for quite a while. It's quite. Pardon?
Is it wisdom teeth?
I had my wisdom tooth removed last year. It's kind of in the space where that was.
That's tricky.
Yeah, I phoned them up and they said that they aren't currently willing to do anything because of the COVID situation. The best that they could do is to give me something for the pain, but it feels like, what I'm worried about is any long-term residual damage.
Yeah, from like infections or whatever. That's anxiety inducing. I hope you.
Yeah, I'm not actually. Even though the pain is quite bad, like I'm able to sleep, so like that's good.
You get some antiseptic mouthwash in the meantime.
What I have been doing is, as well as brushing my teeth, I've been making sure to gargle with salt water.
Yeah.
So, wait, is this? Like, how much is it to? I mean, just because there's a dentist in your building doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily get to see them, or like.
Yeah, unless they do like a home surgery, in which case that draws up concerns of its own.
So clear up your sinuses, says Xate.
Didn't know that. Learn something new every day.
But talking of nicer things, I am going to definitely do some work, but then I'm going to stop working no matter what at 6 p.m. and I'm going to possibly play something, possibly some solo. I'll see how I feel. I'll maybe just chill, but it is the office of the dentist, just to clarify.
Fair enough. Okay.
But I will presumably need to make an appointment, and And Aquasilus says, stay hydrated, but you will notice that I have drunk all of this. And
I drank all of mine like within the first half hour, and I really regret doing that. Just have like a
bring 2 big
hydration
glasses.
break.
And Sate's got to see their dad when Sate's dad was.
I think that's the dentist.
Oh, the dentist saw Sate's dad when Sate's dad was here for a wedding and a friend here. Okay, I see. Okay, I thought this was like now going on to highlights. No,
we're still on dental talk.
Yeah, but thank you very much for all the kinds of maybe we can talk about this like off public, but Lex has had too much coffee, and with that it is 12 o'clock. I do definitely need to finish, so I just want to say you close us out with something positive.
Do some meal planning. Really look after your future self. Do a little bit of work in advance so you know you're going to have good food in your life and in your house. Good nutritious food. Do some pre-cooking. Why not?
Music. Sorry, I'm just going to. The person we're going to read is Amadeus, who is doing a 24-hour live stream just to celebrate and because they're crazy. But the only thing that I'm going to say now is bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along.
Bye, bye.
Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show.
Goodbye.
Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go.
Ta-ra.
Bye, bye, bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, bye.
Bye, bye.
This is the end of the show.
I love it when the end of it gets a bit creepy and stuff. Bye, 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 bye.
And now it's
everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Love you.